They called me a disgrace before I ever wore the uniform. At the Carter Estate's holiday dinner, my place wasn't set among the fine china. It was behind my sister's chair, refilling her glass like a servant with my own bloodline. No one said my name. No one asked how I'd been. They lifted their crystal flutes to her promotion ceremony, her medals, her bright future. My father raised his glass last. To those who build legacies, he said, pausing just long enough to look me dead in the eye, and to those who quietly support them. I didn't argue. I didn't lower my gaze. I stood there, my hands steady on the decanter, feeling something inside me harden into resolve. They thought silence was surrender. They were wrong. That night, I packed a single duffel bag. No medals, no photographs, only the papers I needed to leave without questions. My father's study door stayed ajar as I passed. He didn't look up from his ledger. He just said, "Not everyone is meant to serve with honor, Evelyn. Some are born to stand in the shadows." I waited, hoping he might turn around, that he might call me back, but he kept writing like I was already gone. At the end of the hallway, my mother watched me in silence. Her eyes were tired. She didn't try to stop me. When I stepped into the cold night, the wind felt cleaner than any room in that house. I closed the door behind me without regret. No send-off, no applause, just the hush of freedom. I disappeared into the ranks without ceremony. No family announcements, no photos in the Carter Estate gallery. For years I wore the uniform in places no cameras reached. Border towns, hidden bunkers, airfields that never had names. My orders were simple. Keep the threats outside the wire, keep the stories buried. When I returned from deployments, I never called home. They never asked. My absence became routine, a silence that suited everyone. Sometimes in the dark, I wondered if they even remembered I was alive. But doubt only made me work harder. Each mission proved what they refused to see, that quiet didn't mean weak. I learned to move without leaving footprints, to serve without expecting gratitude. In time, I became the last person they'd imagine holding any power, and that was exactly how I needed it. Years later, the message came. A formal invitation to the Carter Estate's anniversary gala. It was printed on heavy ivory paper, scripted in gold ink. My name appeared at the bottom in smaller letters, almost an afterthought. I held it in my hand for a long time. Part of me wanted to tear it up to pretend it never arrived. But something colder settled in my chest. If they expected me to stay hidden, they would be disappointed. I had spent too many years carrying secrets for others. I would not carry their shame too. So I packed my uniform, pressed and folded. I packed the drive that no one knew existed. And I booked a single return ticket home. Let them see me. Let them wonder what I had become in their absence. The Carter Estate looked untouched by time. White columns, perfect hedges, rows of luxury cars lining the drive. Inside, polished glasses clinked in rehearsed toasts. My sister stood near the stage surrounded by admirers. No one noticed me at first. I slipped past the photo displays, her military wedding, her promotions, her speeches. My face appeared nowhere. When I reached the reception table, the attendant frowned at the list. "You're not on the chart," she said. Her voice was polite but distant. She handed me a plain card, table 9. Near the kitchen doors where servers rushed past with trays, I took my seat without a word. As I sat there, a calm settled over me. If invisibility was their gift, I would accept it, but it wouldn't last much longer. From my corner, I watched the celebration unfold. Laughter rose in warm waves, blending with the string quartet's soft notes. My father lifted a glass. "To family," he declared. Applause echoed through the hall. My sister smiled, radiant in her dress uniform. No one looked my way. No one asked why I had come back. That suited me. I reached down, feeling the shape of the encrypted drive hidden in my bag. My fingers rested on the latch, steady. Across the room, my cousin Travis stood with a group of federal guests. He hadn't seen me yet. Or maybe he pretended not to. Either way, I waited. Patience was a skill I had mastered. Sometimes the strongest move is to watch, to let them believe you have nothing left to show. Just past midnight, the air shifted. A hush swept the room, too sudden to ignore. The main doors opened without fanfare. 3 figures stepped inside in dark uniforms. No music, no announcement, only purpose. Colonel Lena Voss walked at the front. Her eyes swept the hall until they landed on me. She didn't blink. She raised her hand in a sharp salute. "Ma'am," she said, voice clear as glass, 4-star General Carter. Every conversation died. Glasses stilled midair. My father's mouth parted in confusion. For a moment, no one moved. Then a server dropped a tray, the crash ringing through the silence. I didn't smile. I only inclined my head in acknowledgement. Recognition had come at last. But it wasn't triumph I felt. It was the quiet satisfaction of being seen. Whispers rippled across the ballroom like wind through tall grass. Faces turned, searching for context, for some explanation. My sister looked stricken, her eyes darting between me and Colonel Voss. My father's hand trembled on the stem of his glass. No one stepped forward to greet me. No one dared speak my name aloud. Voss held her salute until I rose from my chair. When I stood, the hush deepened, the kind of silence that tastes like fear. She leaned in, her voice low but steady. "Ma'am, we need to talk. There's been a breach." My pulse didn't change. I simply nodded. I had known this moment would come, a reckoning that neither medals nor family legacy could outrun. And I was ready. Voss walked beside me, her steps precise on the marble floor. Behind us, the guests pretended not to stare. "We intercepted an anomaly," she murmured. "A signal hidden inside the estate's network. Someone here tried to access restricted files." I didn't ask which files. We both knew. Shadow Cipher wasn't just history. It was unfinished business. "Do you have the drive?" she asked. I touched my bag lightly. It hasn't left my side. Voss exhaled, a breath sharp with relief. "Good, because whoever planted that signal is still in this building." I looked back once. My father's gaze met mine across the hall. For the first time, he didn't look dismissive. He looked afraid. Maybe he finally understood. Some legacies are built in silence and defended the same way. Voss led me through a side corridor lined with old portraits. Generations of Carters all staring down with blank approval. I paused beneath one frame, studying a face I used to admire. My grandfather, decorated and revered. A man who never questioned his orders. "Ma'am," Voss said gently, "we don't have much time." I nodded. But I needed one last moment to remember why I ever wore the uniform. Not for them, not for legacy, for something quieter. I turned away from the portraits and met Voss's steady eyes. "We finished this," I said. My voice didn't shake. "On my terms." She inclined her head. No salute, just respect. Together we stepped into the service elevator. The doors slid shut, sealing off the last illusions of who I had been. The elevator hummed as it sank below the ballroom. Dim lights flickered across brushed steel walls. Voss stood silent beside me, one hand resting on her sidearm. Her calm was the kind earned through too many missions. I set my bag between my boots, feeling the weight of everything inside it. Not just the drive, but years of choices that led here. "Do you trust anyone up there?" she asked quietly. I thought of my family, the polite lies, the empty chairs, the toast raised over my absence. "No," I said. My voice was even. "I don't." The elevator slowed. A soft chime sounded. Whatever waited beyond those doors, it was better than pretending any longer. The doors opened onto a narrow hall lined with reinforced glass. Beyond it, rows of monitors glowed in the dark. This was the estate's secure operations center, built for emergencies no one believed would happen. Voss swiped her access card. A green light flashed. The locks released with a heavy click. Inside, the air felt colder. Every screen showed fragments of data network breaches, encrypted signals, red alerts pulsing like warnings. I set my bag on the table. My fingers hovered over the zipper. "Once you open it," Voss said, "there's no going back." I met her gaze. There was never going back. I unzipped the bag and lifted the drive into the light. Some truths demand to be seen, no matter the cost. Voss connected the drive to a secured terminal. The screen flickered, then filled with lines of code scrolling fast. I watched in silence as Shadow Cipher's archive began to decrypt. Mission logs, operation code names no one was supposed to know. Voss leaned closer. "These files, they're still active," she said. "Someone tried to pull them remotely." My pulse stayed steady. "Then they know I'm here." A dull alarm began to pulse overhead, not loud, but insistent. Voss tapped a key, locking the system down. "We're running out of time." I looked at the cascade of classified entries. Years of secrets I carried alone. For the first time, I didn't feel their weight as shame. I felt them as proof. Proof that silence was never weakness. It was strategy. Footsteps echoed in the hall outside the vault. Not hurried, controlled. Voss drew her weapon, her eyes locked on the door. "Stay behind me," she ordered. I didn't move. My hand rested on the drive, steady. The door swung open. A man in a tailored suit stepped in, flanked by two estate security guards. His hair was silver, his expression polite. "General Carter," he said smoothly. "Or do you prefer Evelyn now?" "Charles Carter." "My uncle. The family's quiet strategist." "You shouldn't be here," Voss warned. He smiled faintly. "I think we both know that's not true." His gaze slid to the drive in my hand. "That belongs to all of us," he said softly. "Doesn't it?" I didn't answer him. My fingers tightened around the drive. Charles stepped closer, ignoring Voss's raised weapon. His voice stayed calm, almost gentle. "You always thought you were different," he said. "Better than this family. But you've been serving our interests all along." I kept my eyes on his. "You sold access to Obsidian," I said. "You traded lives for profit." He tilted his head unbothered. "Progress costs something, Evelyn. You were simply too sentimental to see it." Voss shifted her stance, ready to fire. Charles sighed. "You won't pull that trigger, and neither will she, because deep down you still care what happens to them." I looked past him at the screen's pulsing red. "No," I said quietly. "I only care what happens next." Charles's smile thinned. "Think carefully," he warned. "Destroy that drive, and you erase your own legacy." Voss's voice stayed level. "Step back, sir." He didn't move. Instead, he nodded to one of the guards. The man reached inside his jacket. Before he could draw, I pressed the drive into the terminal's port. The screen flared bright white. "Encryption override," I said. My voice didn't shake. "Level Omega." Charles's eyes widened. For the first time, he looked afraid. The system began a forced extraction. All records duplicated to an off-site military server. No more secrets buried under the Carter name. Charles took one slow step back. "You've made a mistake you can't undo." I held his gaze. "Good," I said. "Let it be the last one I ever make for this family." The alarms rose to a shrill wail. Red strobes pulsed across the glass walls. Voss grabbed my arm. "We have to move, now!" I pulled the drive free, tucking it back into my bag. The screens behind us blinked and went dark, transfer complete. Charles didn't try to follow. He just watched me with something colder than hatred. We slipped into the corridor, boots echoing on polished concrete. A voice crackled over Voss's comms, clipped and urgent. "Unauthorized security teams are converging on your position. Exit routes are compromised." I kept moving, my breath steady, my mind clear. "Secondary extraction point," I said. Voss nodded without question. For the first time in years, I felt sure of my purpose, and nothing they threatened could make me turn back. We cut through a service tunnel lined with old wiring and cold cement. The alarm softened behind us, replaced by the hush of moving air. Voss tapped her earpiece. "Command, this is Voss. Confirm evac route Bravo." A burst of static answered, then a voice, "Negative. Bravo is compromised. You're on your own." I didn't slow my pace. "There's another way out," I said. Voss glanced over, questioning. "The old delivery ramp," I explained. "South end of the property. No cameras." She nodded once, trusting me without hesitation. Footsteps echoed far behind us. Heavy, deliberate. "They won't stop," Voss murmured. I gripped my bag tighter. "Neither will I said. We turned the last corner into darkness that felt almost like freedom. The tunnel opened into a low concrete ramp littered with leaves and old pallets. A rusted delivery door waited at the far end. Voss checked the latch. It's sealed. I knelt by the panel, prying off the corroded cover. Inside, the manual release waited untouched for decades. Bootsteps grew louder behind us. Closer now. I turned the lever. Metal groaned as the door slid open just enough to slip through. A thin slice of night air spilled in, cool and sharp. Voss gestured for me to go first. I hesitated, looking back once down the tunnel. Shadow moved at the edge of the light, a figure watching, waiting. I stepped into the night without a word. Whatever hunted me would have to follow me into the open. Segment 20. The open night. Cold air wrapped around me as I cleared the door. Gravel crunched under my boots. Voss slipped out behind me, sealing the ramp with a heavy clang. For a moment, the world felt almost quiet again. Overhead, the estate glowed like a monument to a life I no longer claimed. Windows blazed with artificial light. A place built on pretending. Voss checked her sidearm, then met my eyes. Extraction. I nodded toward the tree line beyond the driveway. 2 miles west. An old helipad. No surveillance. She didn't ask how I knew. Behind us, the door shuddered once. Someone testing the lock. I took a slow breath, my pulse steady as the night. I'm done hiding, I said, and together we turned and disappeared into the dark. We moved fast through the trees, branches snapping under our steps. The lights of the estate faded behind us, replaced by shadows and the hush of wind. Voss kept pace at my side. She didn't speak, neither did I. When we reached the clearing near the helipad, I paused. The grass was flattened in a wide circle. Fresh tracks. Someone was here, I said quietly. Voss scanned the dark. Maybe still is. I set my bag down and unzipped it, feeling the smooth edge of the backup drive. A twig cracked to our left. Not an animal. Measured. Intentional. Voss raised her weapon. I straightened my hand steady on the zipper. If they want me, I whispered, let them step into the light. A figure emerged from the trees, slow and deliberate. He wore a dark tactical uniform, stripped of insignia. Voss leveled her pistol, voice low. Don't move. He lifted empty hands in mock surrender. Moonlight caught his face and something in my chest locked tight. I knew him. Elias Quinn. Once my second in command. Reported killed 2 years ago in Poland. Evelyn, he said softly. His voice sounded unchanged, but his eyes were wrong. Flat glassy, like nothing lived behind them. You're supposed to be dead, I said. He tilted his head. They needed me more than you did. Voss stepped closer, her aim steady. What are you now? Elias smiled, a cold curve of lips. The future, he said. And then he moved. And then Elias lunged forward with inhuman speed. Voss fired twice sharp cracks that split the night. He didn't fall. He barely flinched. I swung my bag up, blocking his arm as it came for my throat. The impact rattled through my bones. Voss tried to flank him, but he spun, striking her across the jaw with a precision no ordinary man could match. She hit the ground hard, gasping. Elias turned back to me, expression unchanged. You can't stop what's coming, he said. I gripped the strap of my bag like a lifeline. My voice stayed calm. Maybe not, I told him, but I can stop you. He smiled again, dead eyes shining in the dark. Then he attacked. His hands locked around my wrist, squeezing until my fingers went numb. I drove my elbow into his ribs. Nothing. No reaction. Elias shoved me backward, sending me hard against a tree trunk. Bark split under my shoulder. Voss staggered up, blood on her lip. She aimed again, but Elias kicked the gun from her grip, sending it skidding into the grass. I forced my numb hand to close around the backup drive in my pocket. My pulse thudded in my ears, steady and cold. He stepped close, voice low. You were always predictable, Evelyn. I met his dead gaze without blinking. Then predict this, I whispered. With my last strength, I slammed the drive into the base of his skull. Elias froze. His body jerked once, like a wire had snapped inside him. The drive flickered, its casing glowing faint blue. A fail-safe I'd hidden years ago in case any of us were ever turned. His mouth parted, breath shuddering. For a moment, something human flickered in his eyes. Evelyn, he rasped. Don't. Then the light in the drive died. His knees buckled and he sank to the ground without a sound. Voss retrieved her weapon, aiming at his still form. Her voice was hoarse. Is he? I shook my head slowly. He's gone. The wind moved through the clearing, cool and empty. I looked down at the man I'd trusted once, and I felt nothing but the quiet ache of finality. Voss kept her pistol trained on Elias's body. Her hands were steady, but her eyes searched mine for something certain. I knelt and pulled the drive from the back of his neck. The casing was scorched, the circuitry fried. He was broadcasting, I said. My voice felt too calm. Everything he saw, every step we took. Voss swallowed hard. To who I didn't answer right away. I opened my bag and lifted the original drive. Its indicator light pulsed slow and red. They know I have this, I said. Above us, somewhere unseen, a soft hum started. A drone, maybe. Or something worse. Voss looked up into the dark. Extraction now, she said. I nodded once. Whatever came next, we would face it together. Voss activated her calm voice tight. Command, this is Voss. Immediate evac helipad clearing, priority 1. Static answered. Then a crackling voice, negative. Airspace locked. No extraction authorized. I met her eyes. They've shut us out. She didn't argue. Just breathed once, steadying herself. I lifted the drive, feeling its faint vibration. Data pulsed inside, too dangerous to stay in any one place. My watch lit up a single message flashing across the screen. Run, Spectre. Always watching, always too late to save anyone but me. Voss touched my shoulder, grounding me. We move on foot, she said. North Ridge. Harder to track. I slipped the drive into my jacket and closed the zipper slow. Then I looked back one last time at Elias, motionless in the grass. We turned and ran into the trees. Branches tore at my sleeves as we climbed the ridge, breath fogging in the cold air. Each step felt heavier than the last. Behind us, the clearing stayed quiet. No footsteps followed, but the silence felt watchful. Voss moved ahead, scanning the trees. Her voice stayed low. They'll expect us to head west. Then we go east, I said. She nodded without hesitation. Trust built in darker places than this. At the crest of the hill we paused. Lights from the estate glimmered far below, tiny and distant. I rested a hand on the drive against my chest. One small piece of metal that could burn the whole illusion to the ground. Voss looked over her shoulder. Still sure about this, I drew a slow breath. More than ever, I said. We moved down the far slope, gravel sliding under our boots. No searchlights reached this side of the ridge. At the base, an old service road curved into the trees. Voss checked her comm again. Still nothing but static. She turned to me. Once we cross, they'll lose our signal. It's the last clean break. I studied the road, the dark beyond it. And after you disappear, she said simply, whatever name you choose, you start over. My hand closed around the drive. Years of duty, years of being unseen. Voss waited, eyes steady. This is the end of it, she said. No, I murmured. I looked past her into the dark that waited to swallow us. It's the start. Segment 30, the farewell. Voss didn't argue. She just held my gaze a moment longer, then reached into her jacket. She pressed a small encrypted phone into my palm. If you ever need extraction, call this number. No questions. I curled my fingers around it. The weight felt final. You'll be listed as AWOL, she said quietly. They'll call it treason. I nodded once. Let them. A faint light glowed at the curve of the service road, headlights sweeping the trees. Another search team. Voss stepped back, her voice steady. Go. I looked at her, trying to memorize every line of her face. The only person who never needed proof to believe me. Then I turned away into the dark that would erase everything behind me. And I didn't look back. I moved fast through the trees, each step pulling me further from everything I'd ever known. Branches clawed at my jacket. My breath came in cold bursts. The night swallowed the last glimmer of headlights behind me. When I reached the old rail crossing, I stopped. The world felt still suspended in the hush before dawn. I pulled the drive from my pocket. Its red light pulsed slow and patient as if it knew what it carried. I closed my hand around it and slid it into the lining of my pack. Some part of me had hoped for relief. Instead, there was only a deep, clean emptiness. I turned east where no records waited to claim me, and I walked on nameless at last. By sunrise, I reached the edge of a small town. Rows of shuttered shops and quiet houses watched me pass. No one looked twice. To them, I was just another traveler carrying too much history in one bag. At a bus station, I bought a ticket with cash. No ID, no questions. The clerk handed me the stub without meeting my eyes. Where are you headed? He asked, out of habit. I hesitated, then gave the first name that came to mind. Elise Harper. He nodded unbothered and turned away. I stepped onto the bus as the engine rumbled awake. The seat was cold against my back. Outside, the last shadows of the Carter estate slipped behind a curve in the road, and I let them go. The bus rolled on through miles of empty fields. Dawn broke slow across the horizon, painting everything in pale gold. I rested my forehead against the glass. Each passing mile felt like shedding another layer of who I'd been. No uniforms, no salutes, no more waiting for permission to exist. I reached into my bag, feeling the hidden drive tucked deep in the lining. Its steady weight reminded me that my story wasn't finished. I thought of Voss, of Elias, of every name buried in shadow cipher. They would keep hunting for answers, for someone to blame. But here in this small, silent moment, I belonged to no one, and for the first time, that felt like freedom. Hours later, the bus hissed to a stop in a town I didn't recognize. I stepped onto cracked pavement and pulled my hood higher. No one waited. No one searched for me here. At a payphone near the station, I slid in a few coins. The number Voss had given me felt heavy in my mind, but I didn't dial it. Instead, I called a secure relay line. A voice filter crackled on. "This is Harper," I said, the name tasting unfamiliar. "Package is secure. Extraction not required." A pause, then a clipped reply. "Understood." I hung up before they could ask anything else. I stood there a moment longer, palm flat to the cool metal. Then I walked away, leaving the receiver swinging on its cord. I found a small motel on the edge of town. A faded sign blinked vacancy in tired neon. The clerk didn't ask for ID, just slid a key across the counter, eyes fixed on the television behind me. Inside the room, the air smelled of old carpet and rain. I locked the door and set my bag on the bed. For a moment, I simply stood there listening to the quiet. Then I powered on a burner laptop. The screen flickered to life, connecting through hidden channels. Messages waited in the queue. One line stood out in the blur of coded text. "They know you're alive. They won't stop." I closed the laptop. My pulse didn't quicken. Let them come. I was done running from ghosts. Rain started tapping against the window, soft and steady. I pulled a chair to the desk and sat down, the burner laptop still closed under my palm. Outside, headlights drifted past and kept going. No one stopped, no one knocked. I reached into my bag and took out the drive. Its light blinked patient as ever, waiting for a choice. I thought about the years I spent in shadows, about every mission, every silence I had swallowed. They called it treason. They called it betrayal. But I knew the truth. Sometimes loyalty means refusing to let the wrong people decide who gets to survive. I slipped the drive into my jacket pocket where it belonged, and I breathed steady and unafraid. Just after midnight, someone knocked. 3 soft taps against the door. No urgency, no threat. I stayed seated, my hand resting on the burner phone. "Who is it?" My voice was calm. A pause, then a familiar tone. "Travis." I stood and opened the door. He looked older than I remembered, rain on his shoulders, eyes hollow with regret. "You shouldn't have come," I said quietly. He stepped inside anyway, closing the door behind him. In his hand was a leather folder, edges worn. "I have proof," he whispered. "Everything Charles Obsidian, the contracts. You don't have to carry it alone anymore." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I reached out and took the folder. I set the folder on the desk and flipped it open. Pages of documents spilled out, contracts, transfers, signatures I recognized too well. Travis stood behind me, silent as I read. His breath came uneven, like he hadn't exhaled in days. "You knew," I said finally. My voice didn't accuse, it was just the truth. His shoulders dropped. Not all of it. Not until it was too late. I turned another page. My name was there, stamped beside authorization codes I never signed. They forged everything, he whispered. "Used your clearance to build the program." I closed the folder and rested my hand on the cover. "This doesn't fix what's been done," I said. "No," Travis murmured. "But it proves you weren't the traitor." I met his eyes. "I never needed proof," I told him. "I just needed someone to believe me." Travis sank into the chair across from me, rain dripping from his cuffs. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. "I can testify," he said quietly. "I'll tell them everything. About Charles, about the program." I watched him, searching for any trace of deceit. There was none, just the raw edge of shame. "If you do that," I said, "they'll bury you too." He nodded. "Maybe I deserve it." I closed the folder and slid it back to him. "Then you decide," I said. "What matters more, punishing them or stopping what comes next?" Travis swallowed hard. "What would you do?" I looked out the rain-streaked window, feeling the weight of every silent choice I'd ever made. "I'd end it," I whispered. "Even if no one ever knew, I did." Morning crept through the thin curtains, gray and pale. Travis was gone by then, the folder too. No note, no goodbye. I sat alone at the desk, the burner phone in one hand, the drive in the other. Outside, the world kept moving, cars on wet pavement, voices drifting past my door. I closed my eyes and listened to the ordinary sounds. They felt more real than any medal or title ever had. In the end, it wasn't about redemption or revenge. It was about leaving something cleaner behind, a line no one could cross again. I slipped the drive deep into my pack and zipped it shut. Then I stood shoulders straight and stepped into the rain without looking back. Silence followed me. It felt like peace.